A heartbroken mother is suing Chinese authorities over the death of her daughter. She said the CCP cover-up of the epidemic led to her death. After college students on campus in North China were recorded screaming out at night, the same incident happened in South China. And the students on campus under lockdown are now facing another specific problem. The United Nations website called the Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping His Highness by mistake. One netizen joked Xi's emperor dream was shattered by the UN. A South Korean official was shot dead and set on fire by North Korean troops. It's suspected he was trying to defect to the north. And a report by Senate Republicans questions transactions between the Biden family and a Chinese businessman. The Chinese national has close ties with the Chinese regime and the military. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. First, we turn to the flooding in China. China's most northern province, named Heilongjiang, has recently been hit by flooding. Early Tuesday morning, a dam in Daqing City collapsed. The resulting flood soaked more than 11,000 acres of rice fields. The damage has rendered farmers' efforts for the year useless. One farmer shot a clip of the scene, saying that locals are facing major difficulty. He explained that the crops were nearly ready to be harvested, but now suddenly everything is gone. Elsewhere in Heilongjiang, a second wave of flooding was building in the Songhua River on Tuesday. China's Ministry of Water Resources says it's due to heavy rain upstream. By Wednesday, the river's water level had exceeded its overflow warning level by 4 inches. Some parts of the river are now impassable by boat. A video taken the same day shows parts of a riverside park completely submerged. This year, China's national rainfall average has surged 13% higher than normal. It's the second highest recorded in the last 60 years. More than 800 rivers across the country have suffered or are suffering from overflowing water levels and floods. That's a whopping 80% higher than normal. A mother who lost her daughter to the CCP virus is now suing the local authorities. She said her daughter could have still been alive if officials hadn't covered up the pandemic. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
A Wuhan resident is suing local authorities over the death of her only child. She demands a public apology and an almost $300,000 in compensation.
I just think that my daughter shouldn't have died. I hope she can rest in peace. I think the officials that covered up the pandemic are responsible for her death.
As early as late December last year, 8 doctors in China tried to warn about a SARS-like virus, including Dr. Li Wenliang, but they were reprimanded by authorities. Yang said on January 16th, her daughter went to a local hospital for surgery. That's 4 days before Chinese authorities admitted there was human-to-human transmission. Her daughter was infected with the virus at the hospital and died 3 weeks later. She was only 24 years old. Yang said if she had known that the virus was contagious, her daughter wouldn't have gone to the hospital, and her life could have been saved. She also suspects the authorities covered up the real death toll. In a social media post, she wrote that her daughter tested positive for the virus, but her daughter's death certificate says she died of viral pneumonia. Yang has been trying to demand justice for her daughter, but was dragged away when appealing to local authorities. A friend recorded her crying out her grievances.
If I don't demand justice for my daughter, then I don't deserve to be her mom. You don't know how miserable she was when she died. She was looking at me. I can't even bear to think about it.
4 other Hubei residents who lost their family members to the virus are also suing the authorities. But a U.S.-based human rights lawyer that's providing legal aid for them said the court refused to take their cases.
Both the government and the court didn't give any response to the lawsuits asking for compensation.
Not only that, Yang said Chinese authorities threatened the plaintiff's family members. in an effort to force them to drop the lawsuits. Changchun and Juliet Song, NTD News.
Students in a college in North China were heard calling out and screaming at night. They were protesting against the campus being under lockdown. Soon after, students at a college in South China were following suit. China has reported very few cases of the Chinese Communist Party or CCP virus across the country. But students from many colleges are finding their campuses put on lockdown, and the students are protesting. After students from Xi'an International Studies University shouted from inside their dorm rooms for nearly 30 minutes on Sunday night. Students from Guangzhou Institute of Technology did the same on Wednesday. Besides the lockdown, the students are disgruntled about high prices in the school cafeteria and garbage stinking around the dorm. Zhang Ming, a senior student at the college, told us an average of 1,000 people in each dorm building rely on several small garbage bins. The garbage starts piling up after just half a day. To protect our interviewees' identities, we gave them pseudonyms. Freshman Zhao Jing said no one takes care of the garbage. She told us that once, when she and several other students went back to the dormitory at night, they all vomited because of the horrible smell of the trash. Zhao said such an environment breeds bacteria and mosquitoes, and rats are everywhere. Zhao also said the prices at the school cafeteria are twice as high as those outside. And there's no price tag on the items. Students pay whatever price the shop salesperson asks. She added since students aren't allowed to go off campus to eat, the waiting lines in the cafeterias are long during peak hours every day. Sometimes students have to wait half an hour to get food. The final trigger for the nighttime screaming protest was the shortening of the National Day holiday that takes place around October 1st. The school will allow students 4 days off instead of the usual 8. If the students want to go out of school, they have to get approval from various levels as well as their parents. Some students are questioning if it's realistic to have all 10,000 students apply for an approval. A video of a Chinese official slapping and abusing a coworker has gone viral online. Posted on Wednesday, the video shows a Chinese official inside an office, speaking angrily to what appears to be a subordinate. "You tell me, do you expect me to listen to your report? You want to submit the document to the supervisor, but where is the report? Where is it?" Before he finished speaking, he slapped the man. The subordinate whispered, Oh, I have to show it to the supervisor." The official asked, "Why are you coming to me? You should give it to the supervisor and ask him to check it." After that, he hit the file out of the subordinate's hands and onto the floor, adding, "You are crazy." After the video was posted online, one netizen identified him as Shi Huawei, director of the Communist Party's History Research Center in Rushan City, Shandong Province. According to Chinese media, the man who was slapped is a research center employee. The clip has triggered anger among Chinese netizens. One of them wrote, "What an official! Is the office owned by his family? Are the employees his people? He can hit or scold them if he wants. A small official with such a low position dares to casually hit people. Obviously, he is used to being rude and arrogant." Due to the strong online response, Rushan city authorities announced on Thursday that Xi has been suspended from his position and is now under investigation. Our research reveals that Xi had been invited to lecture in May at a local Chinese Communist Party or CCP education center. His lectures reportedly promoted the so-called Red Spirit, a term referring to the Chinese regime's communist ideology. Democratic candidate Joe Biden says he will be firm on China's human rights abuses and its militarization in the South China Sea. He spoke before departing to North Carolina Wednesday.
Look, there's a lot at stake in this relationship and how we handle it. But I will be firm on China's violation of human rights, its militarization in the South China Sea, and a whole range of things. A recent analysis points out that China knows that I will be straight, but they also are worried that I will be tough.
Biden's comments came after a reporter asked him about U.S.-China relations under his administration if elected. It is not known what recent analysis he was referring to. The report from an investigation by Senate Republicans questioned transactions between the Biden family and a Chinese businessman. The Chinese national has close ties with the Chinese regime and the military.
A new Senate report on Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's son has emerged. It states that Hunter Biden received millions of dollars over the course of several years from Ye Jianming, a Chinese oil tycoon with ties to the Chinese military. The report identifies some transactions between them as questionable and potential financial criminal activities. In August 2017, Ye's company wired $5 million to a U.S. company called Hudson West 3. The company was incorporated in 2016, and Hunter Biden later became the co-owner together with Ye's subordinate. In the year following the $5 million transaction, Hudson West 3 sent frequent payments to Biden's law firm Owasco. Described as consulting fees, the payments totaled about $4 million. Around the same time, Hunter Biden's company moved over $1 million to his uncle, James Biden's consulting firm. The report identifies the transaction as a potential financial criminal activity. When the bank reached out to James Biden's wife Sarah Biden to clarify the activity, she refused to provide any supporting documents. And in September 2017, the Chinese tycoon's subordinate opened a bank account together with Hunter Biden. Hunter, James, and Sarah Biden were all authorized users of credit cards associated with the account. They later used the cards to purchase over $100,000 worth of luxury items. A previous media report shows that in 2017, Hunter Biden helped negotiate a deal for Ye Jianming to invest $40 million in a natural gas project in Louisiana. The project reportedly fell through the following year. Biden has also reportedly agreed to represent another of Ye Jianming's subordinates, Patrick Ho, in his corruption trial. Ho was sentenced to 3 years by New York's federal court for bribing top African officials to obtain local oil businesses. According to a New York Times report, when American authorities arrested Patrick Ho, the first phone call he made was to James Biden. Chinese businessman Ye Jianming is no ordinary person. He was once touted by the media as a Chinese Rockefeller. His company, CEFC China Energy, was private in name, but hired numerous high-ranking former officials from the Chinese military and Hong Kong as executives. Ye's company publicly admits that their overseas businesses serve the Chinese regime's strategic goals.
We still need to closely follow the government's policies and serve the state's strategic interest. In the past few years, CEFC China Energy has made some really good strategic layouts in Middle Asia and the Middle East. All of these layouts are to serve the government's strategy.
In 2017, for example, the company bought 14% stake in Russia's state oil giant, third only to the Russian government and UK's BP. Ye Jianming himself served as an economic advisor for the Czech Republic's pro-Beijing president. The European Union member country was once seen by Beijing as a stepping stone to stretch its influence in Europe. Ye fell out of favor with Chinese authorities in 2018. He was charged with embezzlement, and his company was taken over by authorities. He has since disappeared from the public eye. The Biden campaign called the report a Republican attempt to distract the public from the pandemic. Republican Senator Mitt Romney criticized the investigation as a political exercise. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Hong Kong police arrested prominent pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong on Thursday. It's for participating in an unauthorized assembly in October 2019 and for violating the city's anti-mask law. He was released on bail the same day.
Hong Kong police have arrested prominent democracy activist Joshua Wong for his involvement in last year's protests. He said authorities claimed his arrest was for participating in an unauthorized assembly in October 2019 and for violating the city's anti-mask law. The law, which is no longer in place, prevented people from wearing masks in public to help police identify protesters. 23-year-old Wong is the latest in a string of activists being charged after last year's pro-democracy protests. The unrest prompted Beijing to impose a sweeping national security law on June 30th. It punishes anything China considers as subversion, succession, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces, with up to life in prison. Speaking to the media after being released on bail, Wang had this to say.
So I urge the international community, instead of only focusing on prominent activists just like me, I wish more people can pay attention to how 12 detainees are still being detained in Shenzhen and with the secret detention, which is totally violate on human rights. And it's time to urge the government, stop the political prosecution. Chilling effect is not the way out, and it will not cause us to surrender.
His longtime colleague Agnes Chow and 2 other activists were among 10 people arrested in August on suspicion of violating the new law. Media tycoon Jimmy Lai was also detained weeks earlier on suspicion of colluding with foreign forces. Wang was just 17 years old when he became the face of the 2014 student-led umbrella movement democracy protests. But he was not a leading figure of the often violent unrest that shook Hong Kong last year. Wang has been a frequent visitor to Washington. He appealed to the US Congress to support Hong Kong's democracy movement.
Joshua Wong was released on bail Thursday, soon after he published a video message online. In the video, Wong laid out the court cases he's currently facing. He added that Hong Kong police are trying to silence Hong Kongers by arresting him.
And the reason behind that they would love to arrest me is they wish to generate the chilling effect and try the best to silence the voice of dissidents before the Chinese National Day.
In closing, Wong vowed to continue his fight.
Even facing the maximum penalties of 5 years in jail related to the unauthorized assembly and 1 year in jail of wearing a mask that violate on the anti-mask law, I have no regret at all because the threats can't defeat us, make us even stronger determination. That's my responsibility, duty, and mission. Let the voice of Hong Kongers being heard, and that's the reason for me continue the fight. And I realize there's no reason for us to give up.
Joshua Wong may be out on bail for now, but the city's police force has reportedly cracked his phone's code. Mobile forensics company MSAB, based in Sweden, provided data retrieval services to Hong Kong police. According to Bloomberg, MSAB will no longer provide such service to Hong Kong government and will terminate all businesses with China on Hong Kong. MSAB Deputy CEO Mike Dickinson admitted that the decision was linked to the revocation of Hong Kong's special status. MSAB opened a branch office in China in 2013. Since then, it received a large number of government orders, specifically for its data extraction products. It left China early this year due to the Chinese regime's policy changes. Chinese telecoms giant Huawei has cut $100 million in research funds and 1,000 jobs. That's due to Australia's decision to ban the tech company from its 5G network. The ban was issued in 2018 over national security concerns. Huawei Australia's Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Jerry Mitchell, told the Australian Financial Review that the company had already reduced its high-tech workforce from 1,200 to under 200. He explained that it would continue to downsize. He added Huawei's annual revenue in Australia is set to shrink from above $750 million to below $200 million in the next few years. That figure could easily have risen to $1 billion if Huawei were included in the country's 5G network. Australia was the first nation to ban Huawei and ZTE, another Chinese telecoms company, from its 5G network. The carriers were both deemed high-risk vendors. Huawei's rotating chairman Guo Ping said on Wednesday that the company's supply chain has been hit. As a result, it will adjust personnel in specific markets, including a staff cut. He didn't give details on which markets will be affected or when. South Korea's military says they know what happened to a South Korean fisheries official who went missing this week. He was shot dead by troops in North Korean waters, who then doused his body in oil and set it on fire.
A South Korean official who went missing this week was questioned by North Korean troops, shot dead and cremated, according to the South's military. They said Thursday that the man had disappeared from a fisheries patrol boat and that evidence suggests he was trying to defect to the north. The man had been reported missing Monday, just 10 kilometers south of the northern limit line, a disputed border on the water between the north and south. General An Young-ho from South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff spoke on Thursday.
Our military strongly condemns such an atrocity and strongly demands North Korea provide an explanation and punish those who are responsible.
They said the exact reason the 47-year-old official was shot is still unknown. Citing intelligence sources, the military said the unidentified man appeared to have been questioned on a North Korean boat before he was executed on an order from a superior authority. They also said troops in gas masks then doused the body in oil and set it on fire.
Earlier this week, on the United Nations website, the General Assembly addressed Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping as His Highness in its official itinerary and agenda. Heads of state are usually given the title Excellency by the UN, whereas monarchs are usually bestowed titles like Majesty or Highness. Xi and King Tamim of Qatar were the only two from Tuesday's list of speakers given the title of His Highness. It was corrected on UN's website a day later. Other non-monarchy leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, and Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, are referred to as Your Excellency. Xi Jinping has jokingly been called emperor by Chinese netizens due to his authoritarian ruling. But users pointed out that the UN dubbed him Your Highness instead of Your Majesty, a title sometimes given to the son of the emperor. One netizen joked Chinese President Xi Jinping's dream of becoming emperor was shattered by the United Nations. Another user said that the title Your Highness was actually true, asserting that Xi is actually not a true president of China. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.